PubMed, you'll find just about 200,000 articles on glutathione. Now, what does 200,000 mean other than being a pretty big number? Well, if you look up vitamin C, on PubMed, you'll find maybe 70,000 articles. If you look up vitamin E, maybe another 40. So there are more articles written on glutathione than vitamin C and vitamin E put together. So this is in the faces of most researchers and most doctors, and this wealth of information, this avalanche of information, is going to trickle down into the general public. And I guarantee you that in the next couple of years, all of you will be using the word glutathione as commonly as you use a word like antioxidant. So that's inevitable. That's coming. I guess the next question you may ask is, well, what does glutathione do? Well, if I was speaking to a group of doctors, I'd be able to look at 30 or 40 different things that glutathione does on a cellular level. But for most of you, if you can remember four things, these four things will probably explain 90% of what glutathione does. And the way to remember these four things is to remember this. Glutathione, what a great idea. So idea, four letters, I, D, E, and A. What do these stand for? Well, I stands for the immune system. D stands for detoxification. E stands for energy, and A stands for a master antioxidant. So just very briefly, the immune system could not function were it not for the presence of glutathione. And this has been well researched. People with low glutathione levels are going to be immunocompromised. They're going to be susceptible to catching whatever illness or whatever disease. People with high glutathione levels have a chance to optimize their immune defense. The next letter is D, detoxification. So what does glutathione detoxify? I think a better question is, an easier one to answer is, what doesn't glutathione detoxify? Glutathione detoxifies cigarette smoke and automobile exhaust and pesticides and herbicides and heavy metals and literally thousands of chemicals that we're still discovering in our environment depend on glutathione for their detoxification. So I tell people that next to water, there probably isn't a more important detoxification substance. Moving on to E for energy. Again, we could spend an hour just talking about that. Well, when we produce energy, whenever you produce energy, you light a fire, you run an engine. One of the things that you also produce is pollution. And the pollution that our bodies produce when we make energy is something called oxidative stress or free radicals. Now, we have these little structures in our cells called mitochondria. Some of you may have heard of this. These mitochondria are like little batteries in our cells, and they produce lots of free radicals. And these little energy-producing plants would literally burn up were they not given a consistent supply of glutathione. And we can take this from a cellular level to a whole body level and look at all the Olympic athletes, American athletes, Canadian athletes, British athletes, Poland, using immunocal specifically for this, for energy production. And finally, A, antioxidant. This is the one that most people are aware of. Glutathione is referred to in the literature as our master antioxidant. Now, that sounds more like a marketing term, but it's actually an appropriate physiological term. Why do we call glutathione the master antioxidant? Is because all of the other antioxidants we know of, and we know of over 2,000 antioxidants, none of these antioxidants could work properly were it not for glutathione. Glutathione recycles all these antioxidants. Glutathione recharges all these antioxidants, and the term is quite appropriate. Glutathione, our master antioxidant. So that was probably the longest question that I'm going to answer. I'll let you guys um, fire some more.
Wow, I feel like that's so helpful. I think glutathione is something that even I didn't hear about for over just a little over a year ago. And I feel like, learning every day and then it's showing up on our news feeds. And so to be able to confidently speak to what it really does is going to be so helpful for so many. So thanks so much for sharing all that. Some great takeaways, the idea. I think we can pop this in the chat. I for immune, D is for detox. E, and we have a master antioxidant. So we'll
Yes.
go ahead and pop idea in the chat and then also take note, it is in PubMed. I think, that is a huge thing because if you're not super confident what you're talking about, you can always say, hey, it's in PubMed. And a lot of times the physician will go ahead and start digging on their own. So thanks so much for sharing all that. And I'm going to kick it over to Mary Beth and then I'm going to pop idea in the chat.
That's awesome. Thank you, Dr. Gutman. I think you did such a good job of just making that palatable for all of us. So that was so helpful. We are seeing, it was a great point Mandy just made. We are seeing all of a sudden glutathione is popping up different places. People are talking about it. People are trying to figure out how to solve for it, But tell us why glutathione isn't typically effective when we take it orally, and how does Immunocal approach that a little differently, compared to like NAC or just taking regular whey protein?
So these are extremely important questions that people really do need to understand. The first point you made is unfortunately rampant amongst people that know about glutathione. They think that they understand how important glutathione is, but they're led to believe that they can eat glutathione. And there are hundreds of companies that are selling glutathione supplements. This drives me crazy because the literature clearly shows that eating glutathione doesn't work. And it doesn't work because glutathione is very quickly broken down in our digestive tree, and none of it, or very little of it, actually makes it to your cells. But there's still all these companies marketing oral glutathione. More recently, they're marketing a different type of oral glutathione called liposomal glutathione. And so what happens there is they take glutathione and they put a liposome around it, which is a little fatty sheath around it, and that's supposed to make it more digestible. And again, they claim that there's research that shows that liposomal glutathione works. There's one single paper out of those 200,000 papers that show success with oral glutathione. And this is the one that everybody's hanging their hats on. This study was done in two groups of 6 people, not 100 people, not 1,000 people, not 20,000 people, 6 people. And it wasn't even a placebo-controlled study. It is a almost worthless study. And even the authors of the study point that out, that this is not meant to be advice. This needs to be studied much further. But this is what companies are hanging their hat on. And again, it is just, I guess I have to be a little cynical about the nutritional industry because you really don't know what's marketing and what's real science. And you have to go down and track down the original articles. Again, PubMed is an excellent site to get the truth. There's one other substance that's listed in the American PDR. That's a physician's desk reference. In Canada, we have a book called a CPS, the Compendium of Pharmaceutical Specialties. What are these two books? They sit on the desk of every single doctor and every single pharmacist in North America. And in those books are all the drugs that a doctor can prescribe, all of the substances a doctor can prescribe. If you look up in the letter I, you'll find something called Immunical, which is actually not a drug, and it can be purchased without prescription. If you look in the PDR and the CPS for glutathione precursors, you'll find two things. You'll find glutathione and you'll find a drug called N-acetylcysteine. These are glutathione precursors. So we discussed that eating glutathione doesn't work. So how does your body make glutathione? If you feed your cells the building blocks that the cells require to make glutathione, the cells are little glutathione manufacturing plants. And you give the cells these specific nutrients and they make glutathione. And the two precursors that are recognized by the medical field are Immunical and NAC. Now, NAC is a wonderful drug. I use it in emergency situations. I use it to treat people who have taken an acetaminophen overdose, a Tylenol overdose. This is actually the antidote to acetaminophen overdose. You see, acetaminophen, people think Tylenol's safe. I mean, it's recently come out that it's not that safe. But anybody on this program tonight, if you were to swallow a whole big old bottle of extra strength Tylenol, that would probably be fatal most of the time. And people don't know this. And it's actually a really awful way to die because what happens is your liver kind of falls apart in 5 days. Now, I'm glad that an acetaminophen overdose takes 5 days to kill you. I mean, you're both looking at me like I'm crazy. What most people who take a Tylenol overdose, I mean, they usually take it in a fit of rage or anger or while they're drunk. They wake up the next day going, "Oh my God, what have I done?" And they have a chance to make it over to the emergency room. And if I can get my hands on you in the first 24 to 48 hours, I can save your life. Remember, it takes 5 days to kill you. If I get my hands on you in the first day or two, I can save your life. And the way I save your life is by giving you a drug called NAC to raise your glutathione levels so your liver can detox itself and you're protected and you're alive. Now, NAC, again, fantastic drug, very effective, but it has many problems like most drugs do. There's a certain toxicity that's associated with NAC. It makes you feel sick, usually gastrointestinal side effects like nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea and cramps. And it also has what we call scientifically a short half-life, which means it hangs around for 3 or 4 hours and then it's gone. So you need to take it 3 or 4 times a day. And if you felt sick the first time you took it, you're going to feel 4 times as sick the fourth time you take it. And there are other major advantages that Immunical has over N-acetylcysteine, but N-acetylcysteine is the one drug that's studied the most in raising glutathione. But again, you want a natural way of raising glutathione. And so your real alternative that's been accepted scientifically is Immunical. Oh, wait, you had one other question. Other whey proteins.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another very popular question that people are going to ask. Well, I can buy whey protein. I can buy even whey protein isolate. What's the difference between Immunical and other whey proteins? Well, in the manufacture of commercial whey proteins, first of all, there's a lot of agitation, there's a lot of mixing going on, but most importantly, there are high temperatures that we use to pasteurize the whey. Whey is ultimately a milk product, and milk needs to be pasteurized. This heating and this mechanical agitation destroys the glutathione precursors in whey. It's the glutathione precursors are what we call very thermolabile. These are sensitive proteins that get broken down easily by heating. So when you're getting a commercial whey protein, you're getting a really, really good source of nutrition, but you're not getting anything that will raise glutathione levels. We preserve the natural state of these whey protein precursors in our Immunical through something called bonded cysteine. And again, when the listeners, if you have more time, you could look up in fact, I have a video on what bonded cysteine is. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put in the chat box um, an address where you could find all of my videos, and many of your questions will be answered there. Not just what is Immunical, why is glutathione important, what is bonded cysteine, but you'll also be able to find videos on what glutathione does in autism, in heart disease, and diabetes. And so if you got a couple weeks, you can sit and watch these videos.
Incredible.
So good. Wow. I feel like there's so many nuggets to just glean from this evening so far. So feel free to drop your favorites in the chat. I think that's so good because, hearing it from other people helps us retain that information even better. So, all right, we have another question for you, Dr. Gutman,
Yes.
and it has been popping up a whole bunch. So many questions about autoimmune conditions. I think it's, really a known thing right now. People are really more aware of autoimmune conditions than ever before. So, can you tell us at a high level what's happening in the body with autoimmune disease in terms of inflammation and immune regulation? And maybe even a sneak peek at what part glutathione can play in that.
Well, in fact, this is an extremely important question because the thinking person, if they have a chance to digest what we heard earlier on tonight about people with a strong immune system have high glutathione levels, may come up with the question, well, if Immunical raises immune function, is it not possible that it can backfire in an autoimmune disease?
Hmm.
Is it possible that raising glutathione will make an autoimmune disease worse? And the answer is no. Next question. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
Love it.
the answer is no, because if you look at classic autoimmune disease like lupus or like rheumatoid arthritis, you'll find an overactivity of a group of white blood cells called B cell lymphocytes and an underactivity of a group of white blood cells called T cell lymphocytes. If you put glutathione into the immune system, then these two cell groups will balance and you'll end up with less inflammation, less pain, and an overall better clinical result. So most autoimmune diseases are not simply the immune system attacking our own tissues. Somewhere in there is an imbalance. And by using glutathione, you modulate these imbalances, you straighten them out, and you end up with good clinical effects. I've been studying this for 30 years now. In 2026, it'll be 30 years. I have yet to see a single case of autoimmune disease get worse through the use of Immunical. And in fact, very many of them get better. Not just lupus, not just rheumatoid arthritis, but things like multiple sclerosis and other autoimmune diseases. The immune system next to the brain is probably the most complicated system that we know of. So we need to look at each autoimmune disease in turn, and we can dissect it and discuss how glutathione works. But let me just say, in general, it will.
Love that.
I
That's
love it.
awesome. So good.
Okay, so why, just dig in a little bit more. Why would supporting the body's natural antioxidant and detox pathways be relevant for people that are managing chronic or autoimmune conditions?
Well, in most of these conditions, in fact, most common conditions, most common chronic conditions in the Western world are secondary to two things. One, inflammation, and inflammation has everything to do with immune balance. And two, free radical damage. And the whole theory of the aging process hinges upon free radical damage. And this is why we need antioxidants. And this is why we have a whole field of medicine. All they do is study antioxidants and oxidation called free radical biology with its own journals, its own conferences. It's a huge field, and free radical biology has been able to describe literally hundreds of disease processes that are either can be treated by antioxidants or can be prevented by antioxidants. And of course, as we mentioned before, glutathione is our master antioxidant. So if you want to get more miles out of your vitamin pill, out of your vitamin C, vitamin E, and all these other fancy antioxidants you might take, if you want to get more miles out of them, if you want to get more miles out of your fruits and vegetables, then you want to increase your glutathione levels. And of course, in anti-aging medicine, one of the key molecules that is being examined is glutathione. Glutathione is huge in the anti-aging world. And with aging comes different diseases. Cancer is more common in the older person. Diabetes gets more common as you age. Of course, things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, that goes without saying. Heart disease and on and on. So this really is key. And again, I welcome you to go to the YouTube channel and you could look up these individual disease processes and see the research with glutathione done on these diseases.
Wow.
That's so good. I want to call out one really quick thing, Mandy, before I toss it over for your question. And that is, Dr. Gutman, you touched on so many issues that people are facing right now that they're thinking about, even as far as like, do you want your fruits and vegetables to go farther? People are thinking about right now, like the cost of things. They're thinking about how do I maximize, everything. So it's like if your other supplements are going to go farther with this and everything else is impacted, like, wow, what a product we have our hands on. So thank you for sharing that.
Maribeth, that's actually brilliant. That never even crossed my mind. The increasing unaffordability of our fruits, vegetables, and supplements. That's a great argument. It's not something a doctor would think of.
All right,
I
over
love
to you,
that.
Mandy.
It's so good. Well, you had me at anti-aging, Dr. Gutman. I think everyone is really just so focused on that. And we know that, foundational cellular health, if we can really get in on the aging process there, we can win in so many ways. And you did touch on it with chronic conditions. You were touching on some of the neurological conditions. I've seen Alzheimer's in the chat. So that was kind of leading me right into the next question with chronic illness, fatigue, oxidative stress. They're common themes, right? With aging. I love how you bridged into that. So how does glutathione really relate to those processes and even something like a neurological disease?
Well, there was a fascinating a group of studies that was done in the 70s and early 80s, where they measured glutathione levels at different stages of life. So they were able to come up with graphs that showed glutathione levels at this age and glutathione levels at that age. As it turns out, glutathione levels drop as we age. And after about age 20, we lose about 10% of our glutathione every decade. So someone my age, between 40 and 80, you're supposed to laugh at that. um, I would be missing probably half of my uh, younger glutathione levels were I not doing something about it. But something interesting happens. Glutathione levels continue to drop and drop and drop. But if you look at glutathione levels in people who are like 100 years old, all of a sudden you find that these individuals have excellent glutathione levels.
Mm.
So I love asking when I'm speaking in front of a room, I ask the audience why. And most of the time, I don't get the right answer. And the answer is that's why they're 100 years old. They had the genetic ability, the genetic and environmental predisposition to maintain high glutathione levels. And that's how they made it to be 100 years old. Their friends and their enemies that didn't have this advantage were selected out of the population. This is natural selection at its finest. And so we went on and just from just measuring glutathione levels with aging to measuring glutathione levels in sickness and in health. And again, clearly, the healthier you were, the better your glutathione levels were. The lower your glutathione levels were, the more likely you were to either suffer from chronic disease or succumb to your disease altogether. So it's such a tight correlation with glutathione and the aging process. This is where all of the research is being put into now in anti-aging medicine.
Wow. I mean, I think that just makes me think out loud to something I've heard over the years. For me personally, having autoimmune conditions where the old adage is they come in threes. Well, now that makes sense, doesn't it? Right? When you know that they're linked to low levels of glutathione, right? So there's just so many ahas just listening to all this content. And this is just so great, Dr. Gutman. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, speaking about the aging process, I think you also asked about neurological
Neurological.
disease.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Um, if you, we used to do this more often. Now we have other ways of measuring glutathione. Uh, when an Alzheimer's patient or a Parkinson's patient died, sometimes they would donate their bodies for research, and we would do biopsies on their brain, and we would find extraordinary low levels of glutathione levels in their brain as compared to dead people that didn't have Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. And in the case of Parkinson's, when we extracted out the specific area of the brain, that was affected by Parkinson's, something called a substantia nigra. When we would look at glutathione levels in the substantia nigra, they would be a minuscule fraction of normal glutathione levels. Nowadays, in the last few years, we have the ability of measuring glutathione levels in living brains. We could fine tune an MRI machine to specific frequencies where we could determine glutathione levels in a living brain. This is like Star Trek to me. Um, and sure
Cords
enough,
being
people
dissolved
with
and replaced by
Alzheimer's, people with mild cognitive impairment, people with Parkinson's, they're all showing up having low glutathione levels in the brain. Just amazing.
That is incredible that
Yeah.
you can measure it that way. You know,
Yeah.
we have people asking all the time about different conditions, different things that face them, or people that they love, right? Or consultants are getting these questions like, will this help with my condition? So I'd love for you to share with us what's a really responsible way for us to answer that.
Well, so you're pointing out that because we're a natural product, we're not legally allowed to market any medical claims. I think the FDA was mitigate or treat or whatever it is. Um, so we have to be careful to protect the company and to protect ourselves. But the way I answer these questions is I refer back to the research. And for example, in diabetes, I talk about the thousands of papers that showed a relationship between glutathione and diabetes, not just um, in longevity, but in complications of diabetes like diabetic blindness, like kidney failure, like peripheral neuropathy, and that there are research papers showing that raising glutathione will help with peripheral neuropathy. So I go back to the research and I say that research says that. And when it comes to Immunical, now Immunical is one of a handful, just a small handful of nutritional companies that actually do their own research. We have over 100 publications, and we could refer to those publications. So someone will say, well, is Immunical going to cure cancer? Well, I say there right now there is no cure for cancer, but we do have, for example, a paper. We have a research paper on Immunical and lung cancer that showed not only a higher tolerance to the side effects of chemotherapy, but increased survival. Now, this is a research paper. Do with it what you want, but please show it to your doctor. So those are the kind of answers that I think we should use and could use and get away with it.
So good. So, in terms of being responsible and how we talk, we know we have a lot of individuals who are going out there and trying to explain this new product to a friend. So, Dr. Gutman, if you were a new consultant or a seasoned consultant or 30-year researcher, how would you explain Immunical to someone who is completely unfamiliar with it?
Um, I would say that taking Immunical um, raises a substance called glutathione, um, which has been shown to improve your immune system. And your immune system is what keeps you alive, prevents disease, and keeps you healthy. And that would be my 15-second answer. Or I would say that Immunical is the most important supplement that you'll ever take. So you may not want to lean on science, but you may want to lean on something emotional. Because if you tell that to somebody, well, they're gonna they're gonna want to know more about Immunical. So you'll tell them that Most other nutritional supplements don't have the clinical research that this company provides. That most other nutritional companies are based on marketing claims, but not on real science. If you want real science, join a company that other health professionals, researchers, doctors are joining because of the science. So I think that's compelling enough.
Oh, very compelling. I feel like that's something every single person in this Zoom can confidently say Immunical is the most important supplement you're ever going to take. And then be ready to answer with the questions. That is so good,
Right.
Dr. Gutman.
Right. And you have that book that I published on the clinical studies. You have that available online, and I guess pretty much everybody is online now, so you can share that book.
That's wonderful. And I love just drawing attention to the fact, you all, as you're listening, that there's a difference between a great marketing spiel about a product with claims and it's flashy and it's amazing, and actually having, what we have to back this product. It's like there is no comparison. So I think even bringing that up to people as they're asking you questions and they're wondering why this product and why not something else, like that is so key. And so I think, Dr. Gutman, just address that for a minute because I know there are people here who maybe they're hesitant because they've been burned by supplements before, or as they're sharing with someone, they're like, well, I have a closet full of all these supplements, but what do
Yes.
we want them to
Yes.
understand? Why is Immunocal better and best?
It's quite simple. It's about the published research. Um, it, any substance. Let me talk as a doctor and for doctors now. Um, and this should extend to other health professionals as well. You cannot recommend a substance to anybody, whether it's a natural substance or a drug, without having substantial research, which includes human research done on that specific substance. And not just human research, but randomized, placebo controlled, double blind studies done on humans. Now, I know for most people, those are new terms, but they need to become familiar terms. Because if you have a son or a daughter or a nephew that's in college, they'll recognize these words. They'll know what you're talking about, and you need to base your decisions on these studies and not on marketing. Marketing is, well, I can't tell you the frustrations I have looking at some of these websites. I
Mhm.
just want to scream, prove it. Where's the proof? And we have the proof. And we also show up in the PDR and the CPS, which also gives us tremendous validation. These other substances generally are not there.
Yeah, great point. And I think people are so careful right now. They want proof. They're starting to realize, that
Yes,
they need that. And so, man, we have a leg up as far as that's concerned. So,
yes, yes, absolutely.
So, with the lens going forward, we're looking in the future. Dr. Gutman, what really gets you excited about glutathione research and potential new developments that are going forward?
I think that there are two fields in science that are really rapidly expanding, that really didn't exist very much in the past. One is genetics and a new branch of genetics called epigenetics. We used to think that our DNA um, held the key to everything. We had our DNA, which determined our genes, and our genes were going to determine our health outcomes. We've learned something called epigenetics, which is epi meaning outside, things that lie outside of the DNA that influence the way DNA acts. And we have actually one epigenetic product in our booster, which is an NRF2 stimulator. And again, I'm not going to get into the science now, but now we've learned that we can influence the way our DNA works. And we can do that through our habits, through our nutrition, through avoiding toxins, and through supplementation. So this is one big field that we're looking at. And the other big field is the brain. And we're just really just scratching the surface of our understanding of the brain and neurochemistry. And we're doing a lot of work looking at glutathione and the brain. So that is probably going to be our next bunch of research papers that we're going to put out. Yeah,
So
me
good.
too.
Love that.
Well, I
All right.
see. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so the future is quite bright. I mean, we have a commitment to the field to continue publishing our papers, and I'll let you guys in on a little secret. It probably won't be a secret once I say it. By next year, we're going to have over 100 papers, publications. We're up in the high 90s now. So I'm planning on putting out a refresh of the book once we reach 100.
This is
All
exciting. I
right,
feel
that's exciting.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Well, okay, Dr. Gutman, if there's one thing
Yes.
you would just love for everybody to get off this Zoom and remember and be excited about, one final takeaway, what would that be?
Oh, I think we mentioned it. Um, there are so many supplements out there now that are trying to jump on the glutathione bandwagon. And most of them are oral glutathione or liposomal glutathione or other forms of glutathione. You need to understand that research shows that they don't work. There are other forms of glutathione, glutathione mouthwashes, glutathione patches. Uh, I hate to mention it, but glutathione suppositories. I mean, my God. Um, there's no search showing that any of these work. You need to use what has been proven, and what has been proven in the natural community is Immunical. That's the way to do it.
So good.
I love it. Well, I know we have just a couple minutes here. I don't know, Dr. Gutman, if you are comfortable taking a couple questions that we've had in the chat throughout our
Sure.
time here. Okay. One that I thought was really interesting that was in the chat. Why give Immunical to children if their levels are likely high enough?
Oh, well, children have higher levels than adults, but that doesn't mean that a child can't lose glutathione. Um, and people ask me about measuring glutathione levels. I tell people that sure you can measure a glutathione level if you're willing to put enough money into it, but it doesn't matter because your glutathione level tomorrow might go through the floor. If you're exposed to a virus, your glutathione levels drop. If you're exposed to physical stress, glutathione drops. If you're an athlete in an event, you're going to deplete your glutathione levels after the event. So many things are taxing your glutathione levels that the key is to maintain high glutathione levels as long as you can. Keep the tank full. And because we've been doing this for 30 years, we have lots and lots of what we call immunobabies. These are these are babies that were brought up taking Immunical. Some of them are now 25 and 30 years old. And for sure, they have far less childhood illnesses, far less time having spent at home sick, far fewer ear infections and sinus infections, far less allergies. You want a healthy kid, put them on Immunical. And given the amount of new toxins that are in the environment these days, and not even to mention the more virulent viruses that are going around, you want to protect your kid from the 21st century. And this is one way that you can have an edge.
Oh, I love it.
Such a great picture, right? I love the Immunobaby concept. Um,
Yeah.
so
We've
fun.
met one. I think we've met one, haven't we, Mandy?
Yes, I feel like we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we have heard so much talk lately about the MTHFR mutation. I think that's such a buzzword right now on social. So, can you tell us a little bit about what makes Immunical's non-denatured whey protein particularly relevant for people with the MTHFR mutations?
So this mutation is more and more recognized, and it's more recognized because we're getting increasingly, in fact, exponentially better at determining the human genome. So what was really a mystery 10 years ago, now you can spit into a bottle and get your genome tested and find out whether this gene is um, not just missing, broken, but even subtleties in how the gene's not working. And one of the things that happens when this gene isn't working is that there are certain metabolic cycles that take place in the cell that just aren't working properly. And one of the cycles, and again, you could see this in in my videos. I have a couple of videos on autism. Autism is one result that where this MTHFR gene is severely disturbed, where they're unable to make glutathione. So their ability to make glutathione is impaired. And it's very hard to do without diagrams, but you could look at the presentation and I show you exactly where this cycle isn't working and how jumping into the cycle by delivering cysteine is so important. Um, so this gene affects not just autism, but depression and anxiety and so many neurological disorders. They all need to be looked at separately because it's a lot more complicated than it seems. But definitely injecting cysteine into that cycle will help with the deficiencies that come from this gene abnormality. I wish I
Wow.
could do without diagrams. It's so hard to do, but look it up. Go see the videos.
I love that. Thank you so much. One other question that's popped up um, frequently is what interactions could this potentially have with someone, like negative side effects with someone with a chronic condition, maybe autoimmune? How would you address that, or how would you recommend someone to address that concern or question?
Well, when we look at the PDR and the CPS, again, I mentioned that that sits on the desk of every pharmacist and every doctor. There are very few contraindications. In fact, there's only one major contraindication, and that is with people who have received a living organ transplant. For example, if you're a kidney recipient, you're taking drugs to suppress the immune system because you don't want to reject transplantation. So theoretically, taking Immunical would raise the immune system and potentially provoke a rejection of the transplant. I've never seen that happen ever, but it's a theoretical possibility. So that's a major contraindication. There are some minor contraindications. One, if you happen to be allergic to specific milk proteins. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I'm allergic to milk. when in fact they're not allergic to milk, they're lactose intolerant.
Mhm.
And so in the when we make Immunical, we remove all the lactose. So even the most lactose intolerant person can take Immunical. But there are people that do have specific milk protein allergies. Now, when we look at that group, 80% of the people that have milk protein allergies are allergic to a protein called casein. We're not interested in casein for Immunical. We take the casein out. So there's a small percentage of people that might be allergic to it. Then you have side effects like cramping. And usually we see this in a person who's taking a whole bunch of Immunical or an older person in the summer. Now, why in the summer? Because that's when older people, in fact, you guys too, will get relatively dehydrated. So the treatment for cramping would be to increase your fluid intake. And finally, there's something very rare called a detoxification reaction, where you've got so much toxins in your body, they're stored up inside of your cells. Immunical raises glutathione and they're detoxified, but they need to go somewhere before they're out of your body. So they go from your cells and they enter your lymphatics and your bloodstream, and you get a detoxification reaction, which might be nausea or headache or fatigue. When that happens, I tell people to cut down on their Immunical, not to stop it, but to cut down on it, stick with it for a couple of weeks, and it'll be gone. I can recall a very interesting detoxification reaction. I was in a farming community, I think it was in Nebraska, um, where most of the time the husbands were the farmers and the wives took care of the homestead. And the women would start their husbands off with 3 pouches of Immunical right away.
Get right.
Yeah, so I guess that's okay, but where's the hurry? And they told me that their husbands stank, and they stank of a pesticide that they had used 3 years earlier.
Wow.
So that detoxification reaction manifested itself by them sweating out this pesticide. So very fascinating, fascinating. But don't give up the Immunical. Stick with it, and you'll feel vastly better in a couple of weeks.
Oh, so good. Okay, one more really quick one. This is one that I received from somebody. She had recently gone through treatment for breast cancer, and her question, specifically on the platinum, she said, I see there's a peptide in there. Is this okay for me to take? Because I think she's been told to steer away from peptides just in general.
Yeah, the term peptide is kind of misused. Um, there are so many peptides, and people are calling anything a peptide, and there's a specific group of molecules that are categorized as peptide. A peptide is nothing other than a very short protein. And the specific peptide that we're using is not like the peptides that you see being sold for different medical purposes. Um, it wow, I'm giving away a lot of stuff tonight. Uh, this peptide was originally researched in cancer and showed positive results. Now,
Wow.
I'm not supposed to say that, so I didn't
We
say
won't
that.
know.
You didn't say that. But this won't do anything bad for cancer. If anything, it will be good.
Awesome. Oh, this is so good. Well, I just want to say you did exactly what we were hoping for
Oh,
you
good.
would do
Oh,
tonight.
good.
Just, taking what can be very complicated to understand, making it understandable for lay people. Um,
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
and
you.
I'm sure that everybody's going to leave with more confidence about making sure you're taking this product first, right? Giving it to those that you love, but also just being able to share this with as many people as possible. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you guys both have been fantastic hosts. intelligent questions, um, wonderful smiling faces. You made me feel right at home.